Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raptor Queens podcast, the first ever all-women podcast covering the Toronto Raptors, our favorite team in the NBA. So it is now week 3 with no NBA, or since the NBA has been suspended, and it has not been that much fun in the sports world. However, TSN and Sportsnet are replaying the Raptors championship run, and this past week, we got to rewatch the Philadelphia series, which was the Eastern Conference semifinals, which went to 7 games. And as any Raptors fan knows, this was the series with the shot where Kawhi Leonard took the game-winning shot in Game 7 and broke the nation. And it was the best thing that ever happened to any Raptors fan ever until the moment when the Raptors won the championship. So it was very exciting. It was actually quite a wonderful week. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dissecting and recapping some of the series. And so that's where we're going to be starting today. We're also going to be doing a tribute to Pascal Siakam. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Pascal Siakam.
Spicy tea.
Spicy B. And we got some other tea time that we're going to break down for you a little bit later in our podcast. So let's get started with our recap of the Philadelphia series. And we're actually going to just start at the end because we know how it ended and it was so fantastic. So I'm just going to ask each of you, where were you when the shot happened? Allison, go ahead.
So true confession time. I had watched this game up until the Jimmy Butler make with, 5 seconds left. And I just couldn't watch anymore. So I went upstairs. So I didn't see it live, but I certainly heard the screaming. So it was pretty obvious what had happened. And I ran downstairs and then I ran outside and screamed my lungs out.
Wow, you were the pessimist.
I was.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you were like too invested to even watch. You actually, like when people tweet, I can't watch, you're the person who actually walks away.
Exactly. After how many years of futility watching the Toronto Maple Leafs, I've just become like inured to failure. So I couldn't do it. What about you guys?
I was definitely at a bar downtown Vancouver. I think this is before, Sarah, you and I started watching the playoff series together. I just remember having to pee so badly that I was going to pee my pants, and also felt kind of deflated, but I don't think I've ever cried that much in my life, other than maybe from heartbreak, but like that was one of the most epic kind of like tear drowning moments in my life. I know that.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't cry. I definitely screamed my face off. It was Mother's Day, so we were all at my family's house watching this. And I remember, so we finished dinner before the game started, and then my dad said, I have a feeling this game's going to go down to the last shot. And ever the premonitioned one, he was right. It went down obviously to the last shot, as we know, and all of us were just like braced, and then we leaped into the air, and maybe we just screamed too loudly because the TV cut out for 5 seconds after that. We didn't even see anything. Anyway, that's where we were at the Game 7 epic moment. Okay, so that was the end of the series. Let's look at other parts of the series. So what were some of the key standout moments for you guys that really stand out for you?
Obviously, Game 7, nothing tops that. But I think what I sort of, looking back at that game, because I was watching it today as well too, was just how incredibly far like Siakam has come, and in terms of his game improvement. And I remember in that game he only got like 9 points and he was averaging about 22 points, and I felt that kind of frustration that I think we've expressed in a couple of the pod episodes this regular season, is that sort of reluctance of him for him to shoot. And I kind of there was a couple of shots where even the commentators were saying like he's not taking the shot. And yeah, it's been interesting to see how much he's grown since that and just the confidence. And also like, I mean, Kawhi, playoff Kawhi, like, oh, it just, yeah, it was just such a beautiful game, and everyone was just like insanity. Like elimination games are where it's at. I just felt there was this one play where Lowry just like knocks Embiid, and like Embiid's such a big guy, and you're just like, holy crap, like that just happened. And when Leonard missed that foul, my heart was just racing, and I was like, it's over. Jimmy Butler was, and now I kind of see why SC has a crush on Jimmy Butler. And it makes sense. Like, I think she probably developed it after the series because, the Butler did it. It makes sense. Like it was like a running theme throughout this whole series, right? So yeah, I mean, like that's game 7 for me. And if we're gonna work backwards, I mean, game 6 was the I hate Ben Simmons club. I mean, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid were just killing it out there. And I realized that these guys are so big, but we did it. And it all just kind of, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but like I've been really thinking about like what matters in the world anymore. And like that game 7 was like one of those pivotal moments where it's like nothing else matters. Like the entire series didn't matter. We came back from 3-1, and like who does that? We do that because we're the Raptors.
So I mean, after game 1 and then came game 2, and that was really disheartening. That was kind of like a kick in the gut. We kind of looked disjointed. Our offense was off, and that airplane business with Embiid, that was infuriating. So I mean, game 3 we played a little bit better, and I think it was after that game that the adjustment was made to put Gasol out on the court with Embiid at all times. And things started to look a little bit better after that. And Embiid started missing shots like from the perimeter that he was making in the regular season. So I think he went, if I'm not mistaken, from an average of 26 or 27 points a game during the regular season down to like 17 or 18 in the playoffs. Like Gasol shut him down. So things started to look a little bit better. I wanted to say that was game 4. And then I very much relished game 5 where all the fans in Toronto and I think Drake were doing the airplane back to Embiid. That was like super rich. The pettiness in me, I really enjoyed that. And then I just think game 7, I want to say that was the best game of the NBA playoffs. Like, I mean, I know that we still had to get through Milwaukee, but just the intensity of that game, and I hate to use the word dogfight, but that was a dogfight, and that could easily stand alone as the best game of the playoffs. Western Conference Finals, the semis, that was a great game. And, there was Kyle Lowry in that series taking charges on Joel Embiid. Like, how brave do you have to be to stand there in front of a, 290-pound guy coming at you full speed? Like, it just speaks to his heart. And then just the way Kawhi could just pick his shots and impose his will. Like, I think it was clear he might have been hurting some, like, I think he had like maybe a knee strain at some point, and just the heart that he played with. And the other thing that struck me was kind of how bad Danny Green was. Like, as well as he shot in the regular season, his 3-point shooting was terrible in the playoffs. So yeah, it was super fun rewatching the series.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that Drake antagonizing moment, like that moment with Embiid. And do you guys remember those like really cute like We the North shirts that everybody was wearing in the audience as well too? I think they gave all the fans free shirts for that game. That was game 5, I think. But everyone, like, that is when I was like, this is the brand, like this is a championship team. And I just felt so much pride being a Raptors fan. And yeah, I think that was the only game that Danny Green didn't really suck. And we saw glimpses of the future Norman Powell in game 5 as well too, I felt. And the 76ers, I remember being like, they all look like Peter Pan because they had that kind of, they were all wearing those tights under their shorts, and I don't know, I just don't like Ben Simmons, so I just remember being like, he looks like Peter Pan out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like Ben Simmons either, but one of the things that really stood out to me in this series is how good Philadelphia was last year.
Oh.
They I think, were actually better than the Raptors until the Raptors were better than them.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I think they actually started out the series better. And like between Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick, there are times when they were just killing the Raptors. And the response for the most part throughout the entire series was Kawhi. And so when people say, oh, there's no way that the Raptors could have won without Kawhi, I think this is the series in particular that they're talking about. And then also like the first maybe game 3 and 4 against the Bucks as well, before the rest of the Raptors, in my opinion, like really blossomed and like it became the full Raptors team that we were used to seeing against Golden State. But yeah, like Philadelphia was so much better last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, Jimmy's jumpers were just like on point, and even yeah, sorry, I just, every time you guys say something, I'm just like, oh yeah, and that thing. You know, he was, I think that game too, I don't know if you guys recall, but like that was a really fantastic game for Pascal. Like that's where his creativity was starting to come into play, and that's like, you know, led him to being the most improved player overall, and to the all-star that we have now. And it's just really cool to go back and watch these games and then see where we're at now, which I feel like if we weren't living in the time that we're living, we wouldn't have these like opportunities and the time to go back and do this kind of analysis. So I'm really grateful for that right now. It's to see, you know, where we were at and where we've come.
Yeah, definitely. And you can tune into our pod last week to hear more about the growth that we that we all see over the last year. Yeah. So Marc Gasol, I think that's another thing I wanted to just touch on briefly is the coaching adjustments that were made over the course of the series, and what Nick Nurse had to put in place to be able to shut down, and like how can you really shut down a team with these players, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. I mean, what do you do? Sorry, I just have to do a side tangent for a second. A lot of the social distancing memes early on were like, oh, if you want to know how far 6 feet is, it's how far away you can. Ben Simmons when he's at the 3-point line. Those were good. Anyway, so yeah, how to guard Ben Simmons is just like stand away from him when he's at the 3-point line. But yeah, just Nick Nurse made just so many good adjustments throughout the series to be able to take what was potentially a more talented team at the beginning and you know, have his team shut them down, but then also get better over the course of the series so that they could actually take the win.
Good observation. And sorry, this is on a tangent too, but you guys reminded me, like, Philly this year, how much they miss JJ Redick. Like they just have no outside shot presence, like no 3-point presence to speak of. So anyway.
Yeah. Also, can we just comment on Drake's Paisley quilt shirt that he wore to game 1 in Toronto? Okay, anyways, if anybody remembers that, I don't know why I just randomly thought about that shirt because it was quite a loud shirt he was wearing to that game, and definitely we needed to win that first game.
Yeah. Also, I think that it became obvious again in rewatching the game. We're really used to seeing Serge have big games now because of this season and how many big games he's had. But I mean, just rewatching game 7 and seeing the way that he stepped up that was actually considered a step up then. Like we weren't used to seeing him hit the three over whoever was guarding him at the time and just being that clutch guy. Simmons. That's right. But yeah, just to like see Serge blossom in that game was also really good. I think he was the second leading scorer of that game.
Yeah, he was huge in that game. So I guess, and we probably all noticed at the conclusion of the game after the shot, Embiid's reaction, and he was tearful, and how generous Marc Gasol was in victory to go over and kind of console him. So it kind of speaks to what a good sport Marc Gasol is, and just a good genuine human being, and kind of how Embiid's like airplane, like his antics, that kind of came back to bite him.
Yeah, Marc Gasol is definitely more generous than all of the Raptors fans who just reposted pictures of Embiid crying. But I think that's one other thing that really strikes me about Embiid, and I think already there's been some growth from him this year, but I still think he's a little bit of an immature player. Like to do that kind of thing where you're airplaning and then, or I think he was playing sick in the series, and his body language was reflective that he was ill. And then I remember it was who's that commentator that we all know, Leo Routens, just saying that that's the kind of thing that you as a leader, you don't want to be bringing that kind of body language to your team. And so to me, that's like when I say I don't like Philadelphia, the thing I'm talking about is that they still have, to me, a kind of like immaturity or a sense of entitlement that I don't think is warranted yet. And what I really respect about the Raptors organization and everything is the hard work and the humility that runs through everybody from the top down. And I just don't see that from some of the key players on the Philly team. And that's, for me, always been the reason why I'm not that much of a fan, at least for this generation of players.
You nailed it, Sarah. Like the Raptors, it's earned. The respect, they put in work to earn that. So I very much agree with you. Like a little entitlement and a little, Ben Simmons has been a prodigy, his whole life. And, all of a sudden now you got to work, and it's not always easy. So yeah, I agree. Good observation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like there's a culture, right, in every franchise, and I think what the Raptors have is this culture of, Allison, you say this every time. It's like this is a team that has heart, and there's that leadership of Masai and Nick Nurse, and also just the players themselves. Like it really shines through. And like when you think of Philly and you think of Philadelphia and you think some of the stereotypes around it, I think they sort of play into that stereotype of that culture. And I mean, it's humility is everything, and at the end of the day, this is their job, and you do have to work hard. And I agree, like Embiid is, like you said, Sarah, he has grown, but there's a long way to go, and our guys are just, they have a lot of self-awareness and they have a lot of team awareness, and they show up.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely, to your point, like it's a culture thing. Next week we'll touch on the Bucks series, which I have to admit was my favorite series. Despite this being my favorite game, Game 7 is my favorite game of the playoffs. The Bucks series is hands down my favorite series. So I can't wait to break that down with all of you next week. And so let's move into the next segment then, which is we normally do the King of the North segment, which is the Raptors player that has done performed the best on the court. This week we decided to change it. We're going to play a different game at Sonali's suggestion. So Sonali, why don't you introduce what we're doing right now?
So my suggestion had to do with who would be your King of the North, in terms of who would be the one player that you would want to spend time with in quarantine or self-isolation? So who would be your self-isolation king?
I love it. Okay, Allison, you go first.
So I took that to mean anyone in the organization. So I'm going to be quarantined with Masai Ujiri. I am going to learn how to be a better human being. I'm going to be inspired to run through that brick wall. I'm going to be inspired to be articulate and passionate and benevolent and philanthropic and kind and all of those wonderful things that Masai is as a leader. So he would be my choice.
Wow.
I know, I'm so moved by that.
Well, one of my good friends is Nigerian, so I have like this super soft spot, and she's probably listening in Houston, Texas. So hi, Funke. Hi, Patrick. So yeah, I'll have to tell you guys my Masai Ujiri story, my 10 feet away from Masai one of these days. But anyway.
That should be the name of your autobiography or your memoir too.
Well, that's a really beautiful answer. If I didn't already have an answer, I would just, well, I kind of want to change mine to yours anyway. I'd like to tag along in your quarantine. But the answer that I came up with is for this week anyway, I would want to be quarantined with Pascal Siakam because it's his birthday. So we would have some kind of birthday celebration for sure. And I would also just be so interested to like learn more about this up and coming superstar. Like when everyone says that Pascal has no ceiling, I want to know like what it is about him that has him have no ceiling. And I also apparently there's a new movie coming out about Pascal. Did you guys see this?
No.
It was just previewed today. I saw it on Twitter. But they're putting out some kind of documentary about him and just like the story about how he came to the NBA and the influence of his family and then his father passing and how that has changed his life. I just feel like being around Pascal during this time, I just learn so much. And yeah, I don't know. That'd be my pick.
Oh, that's great. And you get lots of spaghetti with eggs. Apparently that's like a Cameroonian like favorite dish. I read about him. He'd posted some like interview for his birthday today, and I think he was learning how to like refine some of his Cameroonian cooking, which leads me to believe that he's not as talented as Mafuzi's chef over there.
But spaghetti with eggs sounds a lot more manageable than some of the dishes that Serge has served on his show. So
it's so true.
Who would you pick, Sonali?
So yeah, now I feel really bad because I think because I'm in self-isolation alone, I sort of have been doing all these like online quizzes around like love languages and things like that. And I've realized that like my sort of needs are I need to spend quality time with someone, and I also need words of affirmation. And so who better than the floor commander himself, Kyle Lowry? I feel like Kyle Lowry would be the best person for me to be in isolation with because he would help me with my self-soothing because he is such a leader and he is a father. And I feel like he would have really good snacks, which is also a huge benefit. And
100%, he would have amazing food at his.
And I think we're kind of similar. Like, you know, even if we were bored, he'd like get on his phone, we'd talk to Debo, we'd call all the guys. Like it would just be like a nonstop party with Kyle. Cause that's just how I imagine it. So that's what I want right now is to like hang out with Kyle Lowry and for him to call me his beloved as he did to Pascal after the All-Star game.
It's every Raptors fan's dream.
Great thoughts. I mean, I don't know if you guys thought about Serge, but like I would be terrified to be in self-isolation with Serge. I feel like he would be like a drill sergeant. Like every morning you'd have to wake up at a certain time and you'd have to like be on a meal regimen and a workout plan, and I think that's just too much for me right now.
That's funny. That's how I kind of see Kyle, like very driven, very unyielding, very regimented. Yeah, I think I love the guy, but I would not want to be in quarantine with him.
Oh, it's funny. I don't know. I feel like quarantine Kyle is different than like
Maybe.
regular season playoff Kyle.
Oh, this is so funny. I like how we're just projecting a bunch of personalities onto the players and stuff. All right, well, coming back to my pick for King of the North, it is Pascal Siakam's birthday, like we mentioned. And so, in honor of Spicy P, we're all going to share some of our favorite Spicy P moments or things like in particular about him that we just want to say are awesome. So, Allison, why don't you go ahead, start us off?
So I did a list of my favorite Spicy P moments, and I got to say my number one favorite was Game 6 against Golden State, like the championship winning game. He arrived as a superstar in this game. So in my mind, so with 8 seconds left, the Raptors were up 109-108, and Pascal in the paint against probably the most skilled defensive player in the league, and probably the guy with the biggest mouth, Draymond Green. And he absolutely schooled Draymond Green and just took him, put him in the spin cycle and scored over him, like just an absolutely clutch basket. So that was like, I think my favorite Pascal moment. And then just thinking back, just kind of, Sarah, you've got me in the heartwarming mode. The pictures of Pascal and like Yak and Skills on their first vacation as a rookie, I think they went off to the Caribbean somewhere, and just the two of them. And it was just such a nice story, like two immigrant kids, and they were drafted together and they became best friends. And it was just a really nice story, which made it, even sadder when Jakob got traded. So the other thing was Pascal being the G League MVP in 2017. So that was kind of low key, but now I think that was probably a harbinger of like excellence to come. So he was like successful, and he had exponential development, and he was achieving at the G League level, and that absolutely translated to the NBA. So, I mean, speaking for myself, I mean, maybe a lot of us don't have the time or the hours to devote to watching G League games, but maybe we should, because maybe we'd be seeing the future in some of these players. Like, we should have known when he was the G League MVP. And then just to go back, game 1 versus Golden State, Pascal, 32 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. He was just shining on like the biggest stage of his life there, and hugely efficient. He was 14 of 17 from the floor. That's 82%. Like that's remarkable. So, and then my last note was that, my other favorite moment was every fast break basket he's ever scored. So, I mean, I love up-tempo basketball. It's, there's ingenuity, there's creativity, and really some of the plays, they're just audacious, like pinpoint passes. It's just, I love watching it. So, I mean, and you could really see this because before teams started planning for Pascal, like he would get out, he'd get behind the defense, and he would go up to get passes. Some of the passes were like he had to go way high up to get them, and just he created art at the rim. So, I mean, those are, and we don't see that much from Pascal anymore because teams absolutely plan for him. He doesn't get those leak outs anymore like he used to. But I mean, there's so many good memories of Pascal, but those are kind of the ones that stand out for me.
Sorry. Those are awesome picks, Allison. I just have to jump right in on the fast break one. My number one thing about Pascal is fast break. And I don't think there's any other player in the NBA that I would want to go on a fast break with. And his his ability to finish at the speed that he's going, first of all, just blows my mind. His ability to get past defenses and get down the floor before any of them. I just don't know if there's a better player on the fast break in the NBA.
I don't think there is.
Yeah, he's amazing. So yeah, I love that that's what you said. I just am echoing it with everything I got. Sonali, what are some of your favorite Pascal moments?
Oh, wow. First of all, happy 26th birthday to Spicy P. Yeah, Allison, wow. I'm like super, like you've given me a lot to think about, especially about investing time in watching the G League. But anyways, some of my favorite moments were, you know, that game before Valentine's Day in the 2018-2019 series where he got 44 points in that game against the Washington Wizards. And that was the game where like OG really shined as well too. And that was, I think, one of the sort of prequels to what we're going to see in hopefully the years to come, is this team, these two like absolutely stunning, like this duo of like what I'm hoping are going to be the most feared wing defensive duo in NBA history, OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam. Like that is my hope for them. And I just remember his like interview the next day, which was on Valentine's Day, and I think it was him, Jeremy Lin, and OG Anunoby, and you know, the humility and the way with which, you know, they were asking him, okay, you got 44 points in this game, like what an incredible performance by you. And I think he just said, you know, I'm just doing my job, like I'm giving it my all and I'm playing for bigger things. And I just fell in love with him in that moment. And he was wearing this ridiculous acid wash team jacket, and I was like, wow, Spicy P, like this is going to be our next star. I just remember feeling that way about him. And then, you know, I definitely, Allison, the Golden State game 6 was on my list as well too. And the All-Star game, I mean, you know, we didn't see a lot of highlights with him, but it was a huge success for him. He got 15 points and 6 rebounds in that game. And even seeing him he didn't win the contest there, but like competing against like Pat Beverly, and I think he beat him, and it was so much fun to watch him and to see the relationship between him and Kyle as a result of the All-Star weekend as well too. And another moment, like kind of, I think because I'm in nostalgic mode, I'm sort of focusing on the 2018-2019 series. And do you guys remember that game where I think it was in January where they played the Phoenix Suns, and he got that left-handed finish? Like he only had 10 points in that game, but it was because of him that they won that game against the Suns. And for some reason, that one was kind of high up in my list. I just kind of did like a mental dump of like moments that I thought about him. And there was another game that they played against Memphis where Kawhi was not, he had missed 2 games in that regular season, I think. And Pascal was just, he was on it. Like he was there. He was, yeah. So those are some of my favorite moments, other than like him dancing with the TikTok girls. And I just remember seeing his like hands all over his face because he gets pretty shy, and I'm thinking, man, like I hope he's not like touching his face everywhere and like going shopping at Loblaws with Chris Boucher right now, because that's not good. So lots of love for Pascal and lots of moments, and I'm sure many more to come for this young man. And what a delight it has, and what an honor it is to have him on our favorite team. And, you know, I just wish him a long life, good health, and no ceiling.
Oh, what a good wish. So one of my favorites, and I actually cannot remember who it was against, like which player, and I think it was against Detroit, but I can't even know for sure if it was against Detroit. But it was the end of the game, and it was an inbound pass from the other team. And what they did is they went, so they set a screen for someone coming around the key, so that this player could go up for the alley-oop, and he like was in the air and caught the ball and was ready to dunk it, and then Siakam shows up and just blocks it like right at the end.
Sarah, it was Detroit. You're right. I remember now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then they lost that game, right?
The Raptors?
Yeah.
I actually don't remember the outcome of the game.
Yeah, they lost that game because that game, they went into overtime. I'm pretty sure I remember that now.
Oh, okay. Well, what I do remember is just like, oh, that was the sound I made. So, yeah, that was probably one of my favorite all-time moments. And then I just can't even count the number of times when I've had moments of just watching him spin so quickly, and the way that he's just able to get by people on his spin move. And sometimes he's not even one spin move in the same sequence. He'll do like 2 or 3 and just like basically do a ballroom dance around his defenders, and go in for the bucket close to the basket. Anyway, that's what I love about this guy.
Yay! And Sarah, don't you have, I think you own a Pascal Siakam jersey, don't you?
That's right. I got one from.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Spicy. Can't wait to see you play again. So the next thing is we have a update on the legal case against that was launched against Masai Ujiri. So Allison, why don't you take that, since we know how you feel about Masai?
Sure. So I happened to be at work today, and I noticed that Masai was trending #1 in Canada. So it's always a very nice thing to be a fan of a team where, you know, if someone's trending #1, it's always going to be positive. Not like Jamal Murray or Kevin Durant. So the Toronto Star was reporting today that Masai's legal team filed a response to the lawsuit by Allen Strickland. And I guess, and I'll quote from the Toronto Star article. So Allen Strickland, quote, assaulted him forcefully, shoving him back once, then twice, unquote. And then, so the NBA had a response, because the NBA, and you two lawyers know this way better than me, I guess the NBA was sued also by Mr. Strickland. And the NBA's response was, Strickland's, and this is a quote, Strickland's injuries, if any, were caused by Strickland's own aggressive acts and reasonable and justified acts in self-defense resulting directly from the plaintiff's aggression, unquote. So, and then there was, this was back on March 15th, another update. So, and this was from the Toronto Star as well. There was a Fox News affiliate in California who reported that Mr. Strickland was convicted of insurance fraud. So this seems like a pretty unsavory character all the way around. So pretty unsurprising, I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah, I mean, interesting defenses being put forward by the NBA. Like, hey, you're a security guard. This is the risk you assume. Sonali, were you gonna say something?
No, Allison summarized it perfectly well. I think, yeah, this is credibility is definitely a question here in terms of Mr. Strickland. So I don't really want to say anything else, because I think it's pretty obvious what's gone on here. So
yeah, I look forward to this case being against Masai. Okay, and also Allison, you reminded me of one other thing I wanted to mention. When you mentioned KD, so there was a kind of mock Seinfeld episode being circulated about what would be happening if this was a Seinfeld episode during the time of coronavirus. And there was one storyline that I just thought was really, really funny, which is that, Kramer hoards all of the hand sanitizer, and then he comes to Jerry. He's like, oh yeah, one of my clients is Kevin Durant. He bought it from me, and he gave me his shoes. So he ends up with Kevin Durant shoes. And Jerry's like, how did that happen? He's like, oh, well, some guy with a Twitter account with almost no followers, but who follows a lot of people, tweeted at me. He DM'd me and said he wanted some hand sanitizer. And so it turns out that it's Katie's burner account, which is funny if you know that Kevin Durant has a lot of burner accounts. And then it goes on to say that that then later Kramer ends up with the coronavirus, and it's unclear whether he gave it to KD or if KD gave it to Kramer. Anyway, it was just a pretty funny NBA pop culture reference in the middle of a Seinfeld episode. Fake episode.
Oh, there's so many fun memes and so many, like, the haters are still hating even in the time of Corona.
That little Seinfeld Kevin Durant comment will suffice for our Around the League segment this week, since there's really just not much going on, obviously. And so we will wrap up our episode based on that. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Definitely come back next week. SE Magic will be back with us. We will be covering the Milwaukee Bucks series, like I mentioned earlier. And in the meantime, be sure to give us a 5-star rating, share with your friends, and follow us on Twitter, Buzzsprout, Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram at Raptor Queens. And we look forward to seeing all of you next week. Go Raptors, go.
Woo! We the North.